Okay, we're on.
All right.
So, welcome back to the first named episode of the morning after.
Yay.
NARAL's the morning after. We have a name. So, thank you to Pam for finally coming up with a name for us.
It's a fabulous one, too.
Yes.
So, hopefully, we'll be putting audio of these discussions up on iTunes soon to be a proper podcast. But for right now, folks can find us on our Facebook page, which I've totally lost the links for, but it's facebook.com /NARAL, NARAL Pro-Choice Ohio spelled out. You can find us on Twitter at twitter.com /ProChoiceOH. And now we've got a WordPress blog, naralprochoiceohio.wordpress.com. New, there's a Tumblr, prochoicepizzaparty.tumblr.com. And if you just want YouTube videos, you can find us at youtube.com /prochoiceohio. And Ohio is spelled out. So all of these ways folks can access. Let's get started. Talk about yesterday. Pretty important. The third hearing for the Down syndrome ban. What do we see?
We saw quite a bit of ridiculousness, actually. I mean, we'll start out kind of with the most ridiculous and then kind of ramp back to just the things that make you want to bang your head against your desk. But to start with the final question, actually, that I was asked was from Rep. Antani, and he was trying the entire time to trap me and Gary Daniels from the ACLU into saying, of course, in one situation, we judge women and say they shouldn't have an abortion. That's, of course, not our position. We, of course, believe that if you and your family decide that this is best for you, then it's what's best for you, and we don't judge you on that. So the final question was, well, what about if the fetus was gay? Would that be okay?
Yes.
And as I said, I think last year at about this time, I was like, I'm pretty sure that, fetuses don't radiate rainbows out of them on sonograms. It's also really kind of funny because, Antani is a brand new, like, firebrand neocon Tea Partier.
He's a young guy.
He's a young guy. He has a future.
I think he's like in his mid 20s, and by
That'd be my
mid 20s,
guess.
I mean
24, 25. Yeah.
And so, he most likely doesn't believe being gay is genetic. It's a choice we all make and should just make another one. So the fact that he's now questioning whether or not we should, support a woman having an abortion because the fetus is gay just kind of totally goes against all of what he believes too. I mean, he obviously doesn't believe that.
Right.
So it was one of those things that how ridiculous those hearings can get.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that Mark Kovac is always there videotaping it because, it's one of the few times that people can actually see what that looks like.
Yeah.
But even before he went completely off the rails, there were some moments where you saw he just didn't get it.
Right.
The whole point of our testimony yesterday was we're going to talk about how you might say this isn't about abortion, but the only thing the bill does is ban abortion.
Right.
So if you actually cared about people with Down syndrome and the families that love and support them, you could do a whole host of things to make society better.
Exactly.
And then, of course, the same Rep. Antani was like, well, if we did all that and still banned abortion, would you be okay with it? And of course, the answer is no. We support women in whatever they choose and whatever circumstances they choose them in. But what he couldn't understand was if we made society better, women would choose to continue the pregnancy. If they had the maternity leave, if they had a living wage, if they had access to healthcare, if special ed programs were fully funded in schools, if we weren't closing developmental centers, if we weren't slashing the budget for the Department of Developmental Disabilities, which is what that Ohio House did just a month ago. So, you could see in his eyes that he just did not get the fact that there are other things. A woman doesn't just get pregnant and decide, no matter what's going on in the external world, I'm going to have an abortion.
Right.
You know,
It doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
No.
We look at our situations and we look at the situations surrounding us and we make a decision, just like we make a decision in everything else in our world.
Exactly.
It's no different than any other decision you're going to make. So it just really brought home the fact that how clueless these people are on how women make the decision. It kind of brings back that Al Jazeera English video with Rabiki, where he was like, well, I've never thought of why a woman would have an abortion.
Exactly.
I've never thought about that.
Exactly.
But you voted to ban it over and over and over and over again. Actually introduced bills to ban it. It's just the fact that they cannot see that just makes you want to bang your head against their desk.
Right.
I mean, it's really hard to see something that doesn't affect you personally.
Mm-hmm. No,
It's very
definitely
hard to see that. So, and it was very, just like, it was very cavalier when he was saying, you know, when he started talking about, oh, well, if we, put funding up and, you know, restore those programs, up to your liking, then would it be, it's like that's so cavalier, like, oh, none of those things matter. It doesn't matter that our schools are not funded. It doesn't matter that we've cut from disability services. It doesn't matter that you don't have maternity leave. Like, oh, you know, those are just things that those people want, that they think they deserve. So if we gave it to you, then would you not stop aborting babies? Like, that's actually important things that we need to have. That's not just you should be using as like some stupid hypothetical. Like, those are actually important things that we should talk about and have a serious discussion about.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, that whole discussion just proved even more that this is all about abortion and not about anything else in the world. I mean, every single question was, what about abortion in this situation? Oh, what about abortion in this situation?
Right.
I mean,
yes.
As if the answer was going to change. I mean, it's always going to be, it's up to her.
Exactly.
You know, pro-choice. And Representative Antoni asked questions about China's one-child policy, which, you know, we're opposed to because there's no choice.
Yeah, exactly.
They force people to have abortions. That is not okay.
Right. And then he asked the
eugenics
question, which is, you know, like their new buzzword. As if they're somehow scoring points every time they say the word eugenics. And we're like, no, there's no choice. We would oppose a policy that removes choice. That's what pro-choice means.
Yeah.
I was actually really glad he asked that question because I was like, oh, thank you very much. Let's talk about the definition of what eugenics actually is. It is not an individual woman making the decision that is best for her and her family. Right. That is a medical decision. Eugenics, a whole nother issue. And shouldn't enter into a debate about whether or not an individual woman should be able to make the decision that is best for her.
Right. Yeah. The other buzzword that drives me nuts that they've totally picked up on from the Ohio Right to Life talking points is discrimination. That, you know, this bill is fighting discrimination. I'm like, it's a woman making a decision after a medical complication on whether or not to terminate a pregnancy. This is not discrimination.
Exactly.
Discrimination is a societal level issue again. Like eugenics, it's not an individual level issue. It is a, you know, society level issue. Yeah.
Right. So the question from Representative Antoni about what if your fetus was gay was, you know, I don't think he really, I don't think he meant that. I think he was just firing off questions, you know, because he's got a legal background. He was trying to have some gotcha moment. What was the big shocker moment, like the huge, oh my God, moment of this entire hearing? For me, was absolutely the questions from Representative Hayes and Representative Ginter about sick leave, paid sick leave, and paid maternity leave. Because Jaime, as you were testifying, you were listing off different factors that might affect a woman's decision on whether to keep a pregnancy or not. And some of those, you know, many factors were considerations like paid sick leave and paid maternity leave. They were completely puzzled as to what those were doing in a list of factors that a woman might use to make this decision. They had no idea, and directly asked, you know, what does this have to do with a woman making that choice? You know, I think the question from Representative Ginter was, are you saying that if a woman had paid sick leave, that she might make a different decision on whether or not to choose an abortion? And that's like the most, you know, revelatory thing that these guys have no clue the value that paid sick leave has for families, for women trying to have a family or deciding whether or not to have a family.
Yeah.
Well, especially for the people that this bill could impact. I mean, a woman with means is going to be able to go to another state,
right,
and have a termination.
Right.
The people that this bill will impact are low wage workers. And the statistic that we had in testimony was that, the only 4% of low wage workers have access to any kind of paid maternity leave at all. 4%.
Right.
And so, it goes back to Antoni's point of like, there are other things that enter into this equation. Because when Hayes was actually asking a question, he was like, on page 2, and of course I print mine out bigger, so I had no idea what his page 2 looked like.
Right.
But he was like, in your bullet points, in the 5th bullet point, and I, found the 5th bullet point, and I started reading it before he read it. And I was like, is he really questioning me on maternity leave and how that might impact, like, being able to take time off after you have a baby, physically recover from pregnancy and childbirth, because that's huge.
Right.
Exactly.
And figure out how to live in this world with this new being that is 100% dependent on you to survive. Yeah, being able to be home and make money still is a huge deal for women and families.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
The difference between having paid sick leave and not is the difference between having that job with a child and not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's your income. And so many aspects of the Republican platform affect women's decisions on whether or not to terminate a pregnancy, and they cannot see it.
No. I honestly think, like, thinking about that, it's honestly like in his mind, in his world, it's like, maternity leave, what would you need that for? Why wouldn't you just have the nanny take it? And also thinking about
why hasn't your au pair stepped in?
Exactly. It's like, honestly, I think it just went completely over their head, because in their mind, the only reason a woman would choose to have an abortion is because she's irresponsible, and now she doesn't want to take responsibility for the situation she got into. She's selfish. And that's the only reason women have abortions. And so that's why we need to stop them from having abortion.
Yeah. They don't see the other things that impact it.
No, not at all.
And they don't even understand. I mean, you can't even put a kid in daycare until they're 6 weeks old.
Exactly.
So even if you even if you want to go back to work the next day, unless you can work from home because you're, a consultant or something, it's actually not possible.
Right.
So there is a period of time before you can actually put your kid in daycare. So what are you supposed to do there? You lose your job, and then they become poor, and they need food stamps, and they need Medicaid, and they need all these things that the Republican Party is cutting and slashing in every single way. So
they're looking to roll back the expansion of Medicaid. That's going to affect women's decisions on whether or not to keep a pregnancy or not. They're across the board opposing a higher minimum wage. That's not as impactful directly as maternity leave, but absolutely income level is a factor here.
Exactly.
They've opposed the ACA expansion, Obamacare. Having access to affordable health insurance is absolutely a factor. The quality of schools.
Exactly.
And how we're educating women who then become mothers. Every aspect of, the things that they decide on all of these other bills plays a role. Yes. And these aren't like incidental roles. These are the things that make up people's lives in Ohio. And they don't see that all of these are stacking the deck against a woman deciding to have, a family if she's on the bubble there. So to be that blind and not be able to see the impact that maternity leave and sick leave have was just shocking.
Especially on a child who does have disabilities. I don't know, Jamie, you could maybe speak more to it. I just know, me personally, when I lived in Virginia, and I was working with SEIU there, and I was working with the Virginia Association of Personal Care Assistants and Home Health Care Workers, which is mostly women who, had to leave whatever job they were at to now take care of a sick family member or a child that had developmental disabilities. Like, for instance, our president, Laura, her son, who was 25 years old, but he's autistic. So, he's dependent. He can't speak. He cannot. So he needs someone there all the time. And it was hard because they were shutting down the adult daycare centers. And also, when you talk about getting like Medicare and Medicaid, it's not just something that you say, oh, okay, I have a child with disabilities, or I have a family member with disabilities, and now I'm going to, be the person to take care of them. We need for me to get paid for taking care of it. Like, that doesn't just happen. You snap your fingers and you get that.
Right.
Some people are on the waiting list. I mean, there was really long waiting lists. Actually, the state of Virginia was sued by the government because of the way they were doing the waiting list, and they were just taking too long for the people to get. But in the meantime, when you're not getting paid, you still got to take care of that family member of that child, and they're cutting the resources to do that. So they don't think about it. Like, you're telling people, go ahead, if you terminate, you're selfish, but maybe I wanted to keep it, but you don't do anything to help me.
Yeah.
I don't know. Do you know more about how that is here as far as?
I don't know a ton about it, but I do know when I was researching for putting together our testimony, I talked to a whole bunch of different advocates and people in the legislature and those kinds of things. And to give Kasich credit for something for half a second, it might make him, a tiny bit better. Time it for a second. The executive version of the budget actually significantly, by a lot of money, like tens, hundreds of millions of dollars, increased the funding for developmental disabilities. So, and actually a big chunk of that was home help, in-home help for people with developmental disabilities. What this House did, the House that's pushing this bill, what the House did was took that executive budget and slashed the amount of money for those programs. I mean, it was like slash and burn. Yeah. So, Kasich may have done something good for half a second, but his legislature came straight back in and said no. So I don't know where it's going to end up in the end, probably somewhere in between. But, no, we don't treat these programs. I mean, $210 million short in what we should be spending on special ed programs. And there's a lawsuit. They're actually suing the state of Ohio because this legislature has cut school district funding by so much that they're struggling to serve even like the normal everyday student. So of course, students with special needs are going to be, suffering because of it. Exactly. So, all of these things add up to a society where we're not valuing these people. No. So banning abortion isn't going to fix that problem. There are ways we can make it better. Banning abortion, which isn't really going to stop anybody from having an abortion. I mean, as Gary Daniels said in his testimony yesterday, rich women are going to be able to go out of state, and poor women just aren't going to talk to their doctors about it, which is dangerous. Withholding information from your doctor is dangerous. Right. And that's what they are pushing with this bill. And on just so many levels, this bill is just above ridiculous. Yeah.
So we've got an anti-abortion bill and basically a pro-abortion budget.
Yeah.
That will increase abortion. So for all of this and more, we've got our new segment for the morning after. It's called the Walk of Shame. We give the first Walk of Shame award to Representative Hayes and Representative Ginter for not understanding the value of paid sick leave and paid maternity.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, gentlemen. And also a part of that, our new segment, That's What She Said. I'm sure you also know what we're talking about. That's what she said. The awesome Representative Stephanie House, who's the ranking member on that committee, asked the very last question in testimony. And it was an awesome question, and a question, a lot of women have. And she asked you, Jaime, to your knowledge, has a man ever had to decide to have an abortion? And can you tell us, have they?
What's really kind of funny about that is that, my world is so, personally and professionally in the trans rights movement as well.
I thought about
so that. The first thing I actually thought of in my brain was, no, actually there are people who don't identify as women who choose to have abortions. That was not what she was aiming for. And it probably would have ensued a whole nother hour of questions from the committee because the people
there
who
would
can't
have been
understand,
heads exploding.
Yeah, the people who can't understand how maternity leave can factor into abortions certainly couldn't understand somebody who identifies as a man having an abortion.
Exactly.
We probably literally would have seen heads explode that day. Right. But the point that she was trying to make was, these representatives, I want to use another word, but I probably shouldn't. They don't understand.
No.
And I mean, those questions made it completely obvious that
Obvious.
they don't
Do not
understand.
understand
And
at
so,
all.
and that was really what she was getting at. And no.
Yeah.
Those people asking those ridiculous, stupid questions are not going to be the ones who
Right.
make this decision.
Exactly.
So yes.
So good
Stephanie
job,
House.
Representative House.
Yes.
Yeah, she did good. She was
That's
awesome
what she said.
yesterday.
That's what she
That's
said.
what she said
Okay.
in her little mic drop moment.
That's nice.
And I like when you answer and she was just like, okay, thank you.
Mhm, yeah, that's what I needed.
All right. So what else is going on at the State House?
Well, actually, last week we had a fabulous press conference with another brand new state representative and rising star, Representative Greta Johnson. She and Representative Teresa Fetter are introducing a bill. Actually, it dropped yesterday. God help me, I didn't look the number up, so we'll put that in the
Have introduced
blog.
legislation.
Yes, they have introduced legislation to actually fix something that's still very, very wrong in our legislative code, and the fact that forcible spousal rape. So if you hold your wife down and rape her, it is illegal and it is rape.
Okay.
But if you drug your wife to the point where she cannot consent, it is not rape. It is rape.
Me?
Yeah, it's a rape in a non-marital situation. If you put roofies in somebody's drink and have sex with them and they can't consent, it's rape. But if that person is your wife, it is not rape in Ohio.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You got to be kidding me.
I'm so not kidding you. And so
that's the current law?
that's current law.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what are they going to do about it?
So what they're going to do is they're going to change that section. So like the rape code in Ohio isn't forcible rape and then rape by, I can't remember the exact terminology, but make it incapacitation.
I think it is. Yeah.
So they're going to make the incapacitation section the same as the forcible rape section and say that, being married to the person doesn't give you a free card.
Should not be a consideration.
Yes. Yeah. And it comes out of the fact that Rep. Johnson was actually a prosecutor and was actually a prosecutor for these special victim crimes.
This is Representative Greta Johnson?
Yes.
Okay.
And so she said that, she never prosecuted one of these special rape cases, but every single time she filled out the paperwork to file the charges, one of the boxes you had to check was, were these people married? And if that person was married, then there were different considerations. And it was really interesting how she put it out there, because she really sees it as an equal access to justice kind of issue.
Yeah.
This group of women can prosecute because of this, and this group of women over here cannot. The other half of the bill actually will also completely eliminate the statute of limitations for rape in Ohio, rape and sexual battery in Ohio. So right now there's a bill going through that'll extend it a little bit further than it currently is. But what we're looking at is that some of these DNA rape kits have been sitting around forever not getting tested.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we're finding these cases, in one case, somebody testified, like it was the week after the statute of limitations expired.
Wow.
That they finally tested her kit, matched the DNA to somebody who was already in the system, and the statute had expired and they couldn't do anything about it.
They don't look at the statute of limitations when they decide which kits to process.
I mean, they just were so backlogged.
Minimum lined up.
You would think.
This one's, this one's still got some time. Let's process this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, but what's even, she was asked, Greta Johnson was asked actually by one of the reporters, like what it was, because the concern, of course, is, is it harder to prosecute a case 30 years after? And she said, of course it's harder. But in one of the cases she prosecuted, it didn't have to do with DNA even. It was a 14-year-old rape case where there were very specific situations in the rape. And the guy did it a second time. And they found him the second time. Mm-hmm. And he had done the same exact MO with how he raped the second woman. So they actually finally solved the cold case that had been sitting around for 14 years because he did it again. Jeez. If it had been 25 years later, she would have been screwed. So, in both of these cases, she really sees it as a equal access to justice. You shouldn't be denied justice because it's 30 years after your crime. You shouldn't be denied justice because you're married to the person that raped you.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a really important bill, and really excited to see her stepping out on that and really getting some notice for it.
So Greta Johnson and Representative Teresa Fetter sponsoring that bill. We'll have the bill number probably this time next week.
Perfect.
Okay.
What's next?
So outside of the State House, what's the big news in reproductive freedom?
Okay, so the other day I was sitting here at my desk and Gabe called me over. He was like, he was showing me the cover. And at this point I had no idea who it was.
Vanity
and he was
Fair,
like,
right?
yes, Vanity Fair. And he was like, this person look familiar? I was like, they do look familiar, but I don't know. I was like, and I'm looking, I'm thinking, who could that be? Like, and I was like, who is that? And finally Gabe goes, it's Caitlyn Jenner, formerly Bruce Jenner. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah, everyone was like,
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
That's hilarious because I wasn't in the office that day. And Kelly did the same exact thing to me in Cleveland. She's like, who is that in that picture?
Yeah.
I'm like, I had the same thought process
exactly.
of, looks really, really familiar.
You're like, it looks like Cindy Crawford's hair.
Yeah.
But that face. Who is that?
So yeah, that's
Yes.
funny that the same thing
Caitlyn
happened in both
Jenner.
of our offices.
I know, exactly.
Broke the internet.
Yeah,
Yes.
she did. She broke
She
the
looks
internet.
really good though. She looks
Yeah.
really good. And I'm happy for her. And it looks like, she's gotten a lot of support, mostly a lot of positive support from people who
Yeah.
are just like, live your life, be your true self. And I think also I was just, I don't know what I was watching that was talking about it, but they were just mentioning a lot of other things that have happened in the media lately. For instance, the show on, I believe it's Amazon, is called Transparent.
Mhm.
And it has Jeffrey Tambor, and he's playing, a transgender woman who's also, I guess, he's in his 60s.
Yeah.
Right.
And also talking about, Laverne Cox, who was on the cover of Time last year in June. So yeah, some really good things I think happening. Obviously, a lot more we need to do for transgender people.
Understatement of the year.
Yes,
Pretty much.
exactly. Understatement of the year.
Right.
I'm happy, I'm happy. It's always good, if you have that platform, which obviously she does. And so now she can tell her story and more people can see it. But also, like I say, we have a lot more to do because a lot of stuff happens that we don't talk about and don't know about as far as transgender people. And a lot of people that a lot of stuff that I never really thought about personally, that happens. A lot of stuff that we just don't really think about because we don't have to. That they have to go through. So it was just really very interesting. I'll say quickly, my friend, who I think I talked to you guys a lot about, she works for LGBT organization called Believe Out Loud, and her partner, Reese. So he recently, I think, started transitioning. It's probably been like 2 years now since he started transitioning. And just to talk about his journey, he lived in DC and he works in politics as well, but he lost his job. And so it was just a struggle for him to be able to keep getting Medicare that he needed and, just still be able to get the testosterone. And because it's like at this point, once you start getting it, you can't just go, cold turkey off of that.
Right.
But
it'd be like if your body shut down hormone production.
Yeah, exactly.
It's
not healthy.
Exactly. But I think that's something a lot of people don't know. And it's like,
No.
how are they going to pay for the healthcare? If you don't have insurance, does your insurance pay for that? Does Medicaid pay for that? Like, I don't think a lot of people know, but it was just a very interesting to hear him talking about it and how he was struggling because he wasn't working at the time. And also he's still, he's done some like project positions, but also just hearing, how even though he works, in the nonprofit world, works with a lot of LGBTQ organizations, but how he's still having trouble finding a permanent full-time job. He's been looking again, probably for almost 2 years to find, a full-time job, and it has not happened. And I asked him, I say, you think that, you obviously, and another thing, just to go back to Laverne Cox, she was commenting on it, how this was a very good thing, but also we need to still think about all of they get a lot of press and a lot of praise. She was saying because they can't fit into cis-normative beauty standards, and a lot of transgender people can't afford to do that, or maybe they don't want to do that. And if you're one of those people who maybe doesn't fit into those beauty standards, and we see you and it's obvious, you know, something is going on, you're transitioning, you're going like we don't see you as typical, you look like a man, you look like a woman standard. And like that can really affect you and hurt you when you're trying to, you know, get housing, get a job. So I was like, do you think that has really affected you, even though the organizations that you're looking for a job for are supposedly for you? Yeah. But he was saying that he's definitely still felt that a lot of people just do not want to have to go there and, you know, deal with his particular situation. So it's definitely hindered him in trying to find work.
Well, even trying to, it was really interesting. We had a staffer at our national organization a while back, and he had actually started the process of transitioning, was going by the male name and all those things before he started working there. But because all of his references knew him as a woman and a female name, he actually kind of had to backtrack his transitioning until he got the new job. Because, you know, how do you say that in a job interview? You know, yeah, you can check my references, but you need to use this name when you do that. Like, is that a safe thing to do in a job interview, even with a progressive organization and all those things? And, you know, and so talking to him about how he kind of had to put that on hold and actually backtrack a little bit to find the job, get into the job, get comfortable enough in the job to then start all over again with that process. And, you know, those little things you don't have to think about. Like, how do I find a job when all my references know me as a different person, you know, and all those things. So it's kind of like, you know, the whole marriage equality thing. Marriage equality is really important and really key towards full equality, but it's not, we can't stop there. You know, we've got to make sure we get all the homeless HIV positive gay youth off of our street who've been kicked out of their houses. And we've got to make sure that, you know, we're working on all these other, you know, equality pieces along with it, and not leaving transgender people behind, because that so often happens. I mean, the first equal housing bill in federal Congress was just gay people, didn't include trans people.
Right.
That was a huge issue and should never have been introduced that way. You know, if we can't protect everybody, we need to do more work before we introduce that bill. Like, I think that was the explanation. Well, we'll go there next, but let's do this first. And you can't leaving people behind in the fight for equality is just not okay.
No. Not equal
by definition.
So, all right. So since we're on the topic of equality, what do we have coming up this month to talk about equality?
Hey, Randi.
Segue. Yes. Good segue. So this weekend, this Saturday, we're going to be going to Dayton Pride. It's going to be from 12 to 4 downtown, and we're going to have a tent there, and our new intern, Lydia, she's going to come with me, and we have a couple of volunteers, thank you very much, that signed up to come. And so we'll be looking forward to seeing everybody there. And then nothing for next week, the next weekend. Then the weekend of June 20th is Columbus Pride. And so that's going to take place on Friday and Saturday.
But our activities are on Saturday of that weekend.
We'll actually be set up both days.
Yeah,
Friday evening and Saturday.
Friday evening and Saturday.
There you go.
June 19th to 20th
Pride.
in Columbus.
Yes.
So Dayton was June 6th. That's this coming weekend.
Yes.
Columbus, June 19th to 20th.
And we'll be sending out, well, I say we. When I say we, I mean Gabe. Gabe will be sending out reminder emails so you can sign up for a time to come. And then I will contact you, you know, with more details and just to confirm and everything. But anyway, so June 19th and 20th, Columbus. And then the last weekend in June is a lot happening. So the last weekend in June, That Saturday, June 27th, is Cincinnati Pride as well as Cleveland Pride. So I'll be going to Cincinnati Pride. Annie, our northern organizer, will be in Cleveland Pride. And then also that weekend happening the 26th through the 28th, so Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, is Comfest in Columbus, also again in Goodell Park. And Gabe will be out there as well as our friends at Planned Parenthood. They'll be helping us with some shifts. And their volunteers will be coming out as well. So, yeah, but like I said, we'll be sending out email reminders about all of these things so you can sign up to come, or you can just call us.
Sign up at prochoiceohio.org.
Exactly. Yeah. You can sign up there.
And actually, we have a last-minute addition to that list, too.
Okay.
June 30th.
Well, no, actually, I was going to say on June 6th, while you're in Dayton, Annie will actually also be in Toledo doing Old West End Fest. We're going to be just walking the crowd, circulating a petition up there because they're really, really at risk of losing their last clinic. So we'll be doing some.
So we go from
work.
fun stuff to not fun stuff, the tail end. That's June 6th in Toledo.
Yes, June 6th
and then
in Toledo.
June 30th at the State House. We won't be there, but Governor Kasich will be signing the budget. So we still have to see what's going to be in that.
Yeah.
And on that stinky note, we'll sign off. So we'll see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.